Hey everyone, this is Student X here. Today we're going to discuss 10 mandatory must-solve string problems for online assessments and both interviews. So these are basically must-solve questions. You must do this and go to the next step. So you can solve much more problems in the strings, but these are like the first basic steps which you have to solve. So these are most probably asked in the companies like Capgemini, Cognizant, TCS, Accenture, and others more. So you obviously in the interviews which are done for the freshers or basically much more the people who has 0 to 2 years experience, they must know these questions so that you can furtherly proceed for the next questions and all. You need these particular questions. This is like in one short video where you may crack the interview by just watching this video. And most probably I have just searched here and there to find these questions, and so I bought them like in 10 bunch of questions where you can solve these questions. So let's dive into the video. So the first question here is reverse string, which is a very basic question and must solve question and very much asked in the interview. So basically you must have an idea, and this question brings in concept of string slicing. So for a preview, I'm gonna explain the whole questions in Python, which is going to the which is going to be the core language of this particular question. But if you want the codes of these questions alternative in programming languages, so I'll provide C++ and Java codes in the description. Just check it down below. But few questions are done using the Python functions, so you can skip that question. So I'll just dive into the question here. So here we have an input. We have an input of racer, which is racer. And if you just reverse it, RECAR, this is going to be our output. So after reversing, our output gonna be this. So we need a reverse value of a particular string. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use an function of Python called string slicing, which is an important concept in Python. So I'm gonna use that particular concept. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take an another string as a variable. I'll take a new variable and I'll take the input variable, which is this, and I'll use string slicing. So here, what will happen is this is like a start point for the string. This is like an end point. And this is a point where you wanna do the certain tasks like skip, or you can, if you enter 2, it will just print even numbers. So it will skip each element. If from 0 to 10, it will print 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. These things will be print. So I hope you understand this particular thing here. So this is like a certain, this thing is like certain formula of reversing. So if you want to reverse anything, like a string, an array, so you're gonna use this particular thing. You don't give an start point, you don't give an end point. You just give the points where you wanna get. So if you give an -1, so this is a string. So where if you do want to do -1, you can't do from here, right? This is like 0th index. You can't do -1. So what it will do is it will start from here. -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. So this whole thing will be happening here. So if you just after this particular thing, if you just return a particular variable, it's gonna return the reverse string. So this is very basic concept. So our reverse string has been printed here or returned here. So this is very basic concept. Don't forget to reverse the string because this is mandatory in interviews. This is like a 3-star question I would prefer, because in a beginner's interviews they will be asking this question majorly. So we'll dive into the next question. So as we learned our concept of reversing, so now we are going to discuss the same kind of question like palindrome check. So what is a palindrome? So must know what is a palindrome to solve this question. So let me take first example as Malayalam. So if you see this particular question, if you even reverse this, if you even reverse this, what is gonna get? Malayalam. The same string. Even after reversing, if the same string appears, then if this particular thing is equals to same, then it's an palindrome. It's an palindrome. Okay. It's not an R, it's a P. Don't forget. So for that, if you just listen this previous question, so you must know how to reverse a string. So you basically take the string variable, and you're gonna give this particular formula to reverse. So I'll just reverse this and I'll save it into S1. But without returning S1, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take an if statement. If S1 equal to S, I'll return true. Else, I'll return false. So this is what I'm gonna do. This is the particular thing which I'm gonna do. So I hope you understand what happened here. I took the string, I just reversed that particular string, but without returning, I just gave an if statement here. I gonna check whether this particular new string, which is reversed, and the previous string, which is the input string, is equal or not. If it's not equal, I'm gonna return false. Like I'm gonna take an example. Student X is our string. So even after reversing it, it's not the same. It's not the same. So it obviously returns false. So if we check Malayalam, it's same, right? It's same. So it's true. So we're gonna pass to the next question here. So we solve this question, but don't forget, so it's really mandatory question for the interviews. So I've seen this asking in many interviews like Capgemini, Cognizant, TCS, etc., etc. Many interviews they would prefer this question majorly. So let's go to the next question so that we can pass so quickly. So third question gonna be count vowels and consonants. So obviously you know what are vowels, right? Vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So these are vowels basically. And if you say consonants, what are consonants? Except from the A to Z, except these five, remaining all are consonants. Like 21 consonants, I think, and five vowels. So this is a question where you need to count how many vowels in a string and how many consonants in a string. So let me take example as student X. So if you see 1, 2, 3, there are particularly vowels are 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have consonants which are 5. Yeah, so we have 3 vowels and 5 consonants. So we need to count them. So what I'm going to do? So basically I'm doing an optimized solution for this. So for that I'm going to use a set. So for accessing the particular elements in an array or list would probably be not optimized. So if I take the element which I've been accessing from a set, so it obviously doesn't contain any duplicates. So it would be like O of one space. Sorry, O of one space, and this is like very optimized kind of question, very where we can easily optimize. So don't forget when you get the accessing kind of thing, so you can basically use a set. So what I'm gonna do, as for the coding part, so I had been guessing, so I'm gonna take. We need two counts for the consonants and vowels. So I would say vowel count is equals to 0, consonant count is equals to 0 at the beginning. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take an set of vowel. So here I'm gonna take set of A, E, I, O, U. So I'm gonna take set of A, E, I, O, U, where I already stored this particular vowels in a set. So I can access this. So what I'm gonna do? So I'm gonna take this particular string which we have as an input, which is this, and I'm gonna iterate. So what I'm gonna do for character in string, which is S. So it will take the each character. This particular thing has an each character. So this is kind of looping for the strings. So I'm gonna take that each character and I'll check if this character, hey this character, are you in consonants? Are you in set of vowels? So I check whether these are set of vowels. If yes, if this particular character is in set of vowels, I'm gonna increase. Sorry, just a second. So I'm gonna increase this particular vowel count with 1. So this particular thing just increment the value of vowel count. Else, if it's not in set of vowels, so I'm gonna increment consonant count. Just a spelling mistake, guys. Consonant count plus or equals to 1. So at the end, I'll just return both of them. I'll just return vowel count. Vowel count, comma, consonant count. So this will print the whole thing. So this will first print, or it will print vowel count, which is 3, and next it's gonna print consonant count, which is 5. So we have got the both count. So if you wanna just print it like unique way, just use the print statement here. So this is how you count. You take the both counters here. So you're gonna check, you're gonna give a set of values like A, E, I, O, U. So it is like in strictly like capital or small values must be needed. So I'm gonna take if the string is yes, string dot lower, which makes all the values low, and I'm gonna store it in S1 value. So just highlighted here with S1, in particularly here S1. So if not, you can just normally do this. So this is how you solve question. You're gonna keep in set and will iterate each element in a string. Then you're gonna check whether it is in the set or not, set of vowels or not. If the character not in set of vowels, if the character is not in set of vowels, you're gonna store it in a consonant. You're gonna increment the consonant count value. So at last we're gonna return both consonant and vowel count. So this is a question. So we're gonna move to the next question here. So fourth question here is first non-repeating character in a string, which is the question where you find if the string is A, B, B, C, and D, D. So I assume my string is A, B, B, C, D, D. So this is my string. If you see, the A is repeating, B is repeating, but C is not. Again, D is repeating. The first non-repeating character, which has not repeated again. So I'm gonna take this particular thing and I'm gonna print. This is my answer. This is my answer. So I need the first non-repeating character in a string. So what I'm gonna do? So basically, when you need to find the character which is not repeated or repeated many times, like maximum times. So the first thing which comes to my mind is an hash map. So that's why I had give for using the hash map for the beginners. It's quite unfriendly or it's quite tricky. So that's why I mentioned easy, tricky here. But it's like one of the important questions in OS. So OS many in many OS which I have wrote, I had seen this kind of questions coming out. So what I'm going to do here is in Python, in collections, from Python collections, this is a library. So you can just borrow counter. I can just borrow counter, which is very much useful, and you can use it in any OS. So it's like an easy task to store whole string in an hash map. So what I'm gonna do here is this hash map. So what I'm gonna do here is, so first, from collections, I'm gonna import counter. So this is the statement which I'm going to write first. So this is a statement which I'm going to write first. So don't forget to, so I'm going to just drag this whole, this is the statement which you need to write. So C must be capital. So after writing the statement, you would be returning this counter to your code. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take an variable called scene here as coding part. I'm entering to the coding part directly. So what I'm gonna do is, just I'm gonna store this whole string in a hash map. After storing it in a hash map, what I'm gonna do is, so I'll check whether that frequency of that particular character is equal to one or not. If it's one, I'm gonna return value, or just basically I'm gonna leave if I'm gonna iterate if it's not one. So what I'm gonna do here is, I'm gonna take an hash map of scene, or basically I can do is scene is equals to, which I have important counter of, yes is our input string. So it just counts whole thing. So basically, our input, right, which is A, B, B, C, C. So I'm gonna take our input here, which is A, B, B, C, D, D. This is our input. This C is our yeah. So what it gonna save? This particularly saves hash map of A two times, which is repeated two times, B repeated two times, C repeated one time, so D repeated two times. This is what gonna save. Two times, yeah. B two times, yeah. C one time. So this is what it gonna save. So our scene variable is gonna look like this. If you even print this, it's gonna print the same. So what I'm gonna do is, I just took in variable and I just used counter of yes. Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna iterate every character, so that I'm gonna check the frequency of that particular character. So for character in string, if scene of character is equals to 1, return character. If not, any character has this frequency of 1, I'm gonna return -1 or something, or anything, -1 or null or false, which is needed for the statement or the interview or OA purpose. So here in the first step, we're gonna take these counter things here. It will count everything, and here I'm gonna iterate each character. So I'll take the first character of A, and I'll check if A is equal to 1. No, A is 2 here. It's not. So I'm gonna check again. It will check B equal to 2. No. C equal to 1. Yeah, true. So I'm gonna return C here. So output gonna be C. So this is a basic question, but you need to learn how to access this hash map. No, it's quite confusing. So don't forget to know how to use a hash map. So this is basic explanation how to use a hash map. So you can see how I accessed it here. I'm gonna check that particular hash map variable and that particular character which I want to check whether it's in hash map or not. So this is how basically do it. So we'll pass to the next question. This is particularly mandatory for the OS. Don't forget it. I've been seeing this question in OS very much. Don't forget it. It is mandatory for online assessments. We'll go to the next question. Our next question is anagram check. So basically, anagram is an two strings. So for the anagram check, we need two strings. Two strings as our inputs. So here I'm going to consider S1 is equals to what I'm going to check? Race. I'm going to take S1 as race, S2 as care. So if you just keep in mind and check, if you keep an eye on these both and check, so you must see the same characters repeating in this particular string too. So if you see R appears one time, A appears one time, C appears one time, E appears one time. So it doesn't need to appear one time, but the same characters must be in the same the string too also. They must be same but not in the same order. So if order must be different, but characters must be same. So this is what gonna happen here. So if you see the last question, we used some function of Python called counter. So where it particularly counts each element, how many times each element has occurred. So if you see practically, we can use this particular counter right here. It's a very basic thing. We can use counter here. So what I'm gonna do is S1 is race, S2 equal to care. So what I'm gonna do here is again I'm gonna store S1 is equals to counter of S1. I'm not taking extra variables. I'm just using these variables again. S2 equals to counter of S2. So this will basically give the same thing. This will basically give R1, A1, C one time and E one time. E one time. So basically same thing will be returning here also for the S2 value. So what I'm going to do is if S1 equals to S2, return true, else just return false. So this is a very simple question where you take two inputs and I'm going to count that particular frequency of two inputs. So here I found the input frequency of the both inputs and I'm going to check if the frequency of inputs is equal or not. So after checking, I'll just return true if they are equal, else I'm gonna return false. So this is very basic question, but it's not quite tricky if you know the particular hash map concept. So we must know this question. So I'm gonna move. So many people must be confusing in the question at the first part, but if you do it many times, you would easily solve this question. It's very easy and it's very solvable. So at the first, many people would be confusing in this question, but if you understand the concept very much, you will obviously solve this question. Don't just think very much harder. Just use a simple way. You can solve this question. So we'll go to the next question. So sixth question is gonna be finding the word which is the longest in particular sentence. If you see, this is a whole sentence. So in this whole sentence, student X has 8 characters, E has 2, A has 1, grade has 5, and tutor has 5. Student X is a great tutor has particularly for the each word. If you check the longest word here is gonna be student X. So longest word. So I need this as an out. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take each element. I'm gonna take each element into an sorry. I'm gonna take an each element and I'm gonna split those. If you use dot split for a string, so I'm gonna take a new string here. So it's gonna store student X as in separate string, is as in separate string, A separate, grade separate, and tutor separate. This is what it's gonna store. After doing after doing this particular split statement, it's gonna store like this. It's gonna look basically like this. So now you can easily use the concept of arrays here, but we'll just slightly touch on basic topic here. It's not completely focused on arrays, but we'll just do it basic part, very basic part. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna find words equals to, I'm gonna take a new variable. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna find the maximum length of what is our particular string. This is S1 where we stored this particular input string, and I'm split it here. So we are accessing this. This is S1. This whole array is S1. So I'm accessing this. So I'll take S1 comma by what? But by what key concept you are finding the match value? So I'm finding them by length. By length, which has the maximum length. I need that particular value. So I had done maximum length value here. So maximum of S1, which is our split of array of strings, comma length. So this will particularly find the maximum length, which is gonna be student X. So here, which is gonna be student X. So it's gonna be student X here, which is the largest word. So we're gonna finally return student. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna return where we stored them. So I stored them in words. So I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna return words. So I just explained the coding part very cleanly here again. So I'm gonna do is I'm taking input. So you basically know what's the input. So what I'll take a new variable, and I'm gonna do is this whole input thing dot split. What next I'm gonna do is after splitting these values, they will store in an arrays. Again array, and these are stored like in a particular pathways. So now what we're gonna do? We need to find the max value. So I'll take words variable here, and I'm gonna find the maximum length in this particular array of strings value, and by key statement which is length, and I'm just gonna return words. The first step we took an input. Next we splitted the whole input of sentences into words in an arrays. So next what I've done, I find the maximum in array of strings using length. Then I just return these words. So this is basically what you want to do in this question. Is very easy question, but it's quite mild or mediumly asked question. So it doesn't need to much worry about this question, and it's a very basic question. You just need a basic concept of strings here. Okay, so we'll pass to the next question. So here we came to the star question of this particular video, which is remove duplicates in a string. So remove duplicates is very, very, very easy and very much important question in both OAs and interviews. I have seen this question many times coming in my exams, and I also get asked in many interviews too. So basically, it's a very easy question where you can do. So what I'm gonna do is here, if I take an array, I'm gonna take a string. So basically, this is a string-based question. So I'm gonna take a string where I would consider string to be student X, which is mostly what I prefer to take as an input. So here, after removing duplicates, our output must be STUDENX. where every duplicate is removed and a whole string is printed here. So what I'm gonna do here is, for accessing, I've already told you, for the best optimized version for accessing, you need inset where you doesn't find any of duplicates. So any element doesn't appear twice in a set. So I'm gonna use this particular set here. So what I'm gonna do? So you basically know the input and output. So now, as for the coding part, what I'm gonna do? We need an input. We need an input which is student X. Sorry guys. We need an input as student X. And now I'll take an set which is seen isn't set. So I called an set here. I'll also take an array to store these particular values. For returning the values, we don't use set because it's quite different way to print our inputs in a string, to print our output in a string. So it's quite, so I'm gonna use here, so I'm gonna use an array to change them to string. I'll store this particular characters in an array and then I'll just print them in a string. So so I'll explain this concept. This is quite confusing, but I'll explain it at the end. This is very much needed concept, mandatory concept. So don't forget to learn it. So just don't skip this particular question because this is a very, very much important question. So what I'm going to do is I took a set here. Now I'm going to take another array, which is going to be scene2, which is going to be my array. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to iterate each character. So what I'm going to do here is, for character in string, so I'm going to check if character is not in set, not in. We checked already in, but in, if it checks if whether it is in that particular variable or set or hash map or not. If not in means it checks if this particular character is not in set. We're going to proceed in this particular statement. Not in scene, we just gonna scene dot add. In sets, we just use an add statement, add function here, add character, and we also gonna add this particular character to array. So basically in arrays we use append to append the character. So this is what happens. So I'm gonna check whether it exists, this particular character exists in scene or not, in our set or not. If it is not, I'm gonna just add this particular character to this scene. And I'm also gonna add this particular character in scene 2, which is basically an array. So now I got the whole values. So we need to return those. So for returning and for giving an array to string, we basically use return. We don't need spaces. Dot join. What I'm gonna join? Scene2. So I'm gonna join my array without spaces and I'm gonna add that particular whole array as in string. So this particular statement is gonna change my array to an string. So I hope you understand this question. So basically this returns without duplicates. This remove duplicates and returns. This is basically very optimized question. Don't forget this is very optimized. And don't forget to solve this question. This is quite tricky but very easy question. You just take input. We're going to take an set. We're going to take an array to store that particular values. So I'm going to take in character. I'll check that particular character in our set or not, by which we access in O of one time storage or space complexity. And I'm gonna check, I'm just gonna add if that particular character not in set, I'm gonna add that particular character to set, and both in the array also. So thereby I'll just keeping. So at the end we just have this particular elements which are not appeared twice or thrice. We just removed whole duplicates and we just create a new array of non-duplicate items. So I'll just particularly remove that non-duplicate items array to the string. So this is how we can do that. It's a very basic question and must solve question for both interviews and online assessments. Solve this question. We'll go to the next question here. So the eighth question we're going to discuss here is substring search, where we're gonna take and two strings, which is going to be the main string, which we are going to take two. So the eighth question we are going to discuss here is substring search or substring count. So basically we take two strings here, which is going to be S1 as our main string. This is our main string. So what I'm going to take here is I'm going to take student X as my input and substring as den. So I'm gonna take den as my substring and student X as my main string. So I need to count, or I need to check to count or check whether how many times that particular substring has appeared in our main string. So what I'm gonna do here is gonna use substring method, where we're gonna pass by each substring in the main string. So what I'm gonna do here is this is our main string. What is going to be our substring? It's going to be den. So the length of den, length of string 2 here is 3. So what I'm gonna do here is I check every 3 elements. I check every 3 elements at the until the end of the particular main string. So if we find that particular thing, we're gonna increase the count or we're gonna return true. So if you there's a catch here. If you even continue to check, it doesn't stop here, right? It doesn't stop here. It also checks here. It also checks here, which is empty. So it's gonna be index out of range. So for that, I'm going to do here is I'm gonna iterate until here only, until here. So until this particular character, we're gonna iterate. So for that, for basically doing that, for remaining things also, for remaining strings also, I'm gonna take length of string 1, which is gonna be here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically we have length, we'll get length of S as 8 here, as we don't include 0 at our finding the length of the particular string or particular array. We don't include 0. So we basically count that particular how many values exist in that particular string. And S1 string, S1 length gonna be 8 here. A length of S2 also be needed 8. And length of S2 gonna be 3. So if we just minus these, we're gonna get 5 here. We're gonna get 5 here. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna minus that particular substring value from the main substring value. So our main substring is 8 and our main string length is 8 and the substring length is 3. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just minus this whole thing, the whole main string value from the substring value. So I'm minus this, I've been subtracting this. So what are we gonna get 5. So if we see 5, so we're not, if you don't forget in for loops, if you loop from 1 to 5, it's just gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 iterations only. It doesn't count 5. So if you see same thing goes here, it doesn't check here. So what we gonna do here is I'm gonna just increment this value by 1, increment this particular thing by 1. So then it will be given as 6. If you check 1 to 6, it also do the fifth iteration also, and it will check from the first statement to the fifth statement. So this is what I basically need. So I'll explain it in coding part so you can get a crazy idea about this. So here, let's dive into the code. We're gonna take S1 as our string, as our input, S2 as our substring, which is 10, which we take an example. So basically I'm writing the count here, counting purpose, which is then quite tricky. If you get the count question, you will if you get the count question, you would do this particular searching question very easily. So what I'm gonna do here is I'll just loop. I'll just loop for I in range what I told you, length of S1 minus length of S2 plus 1. This is my particular formula to iterate substring. Length of main string, length of substring plus 1, where I don't want to go string out of index. So what I'm going to do here is length of S1 minus length of S2 plus 1. It gonna iterate until here. So don't forget it will until iterate here and check these 3 values too. It doesn't go out here. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'll check if main string of particular character, which is I would do dry run also. Don't worry. So what I'm gonna do here is particular character is equal to the main string of how many characters does that substring is there. If the substring, we're gonna check 3 elements, right? So we're gonna just give length of substring, which is my S2. So if particularly sorry guys. So basically here I need to check the substring values, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'll take an if condition and I'll check whether the main string of I plus I plus length of the substring. If I is 0 and length of substring is 3, it's gonna check 0, 1, 2 indexes, which is particularly 3 characters, which we probably need here. So I'm gonna do here is length of substring. If this particular is equal to our substring, if this substring is equal to our input substring, then we just gonna increment our count value, and at the end we're gonna return count value. Thereby we'll be getting, I forgot to include count here, count variable. So this is basically I'll show you dry run, don't worry. So basically we know our input as student x here, and then also our substring here, S1, S2. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check from here to here. So is it done? No. No, right? Our count is obviously at the zero. It continues. Then I will iterate. Then I will iterate here. No, right? It remains same. So again I will be iterating continuously. I will be iterating here at here at this position. When we iterate at this position, he'll find 10. He'll be finding 10. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna increment the count to 1. And again I'll iterate, again I'll iterate, again I'll iterate. So I didn't found any other things. So I'm gonna count this, but I'll just return particularly this count value. So this is what happens. It will check every particular substring until the length of substring. So then it will return that particular value. So this is quite tricky, and this is also complexity of n into m, as we're gonna check length of substring, length of main string, and length of substring too. So it's gonna be n into m at our worst case. So this is the question. We're going to pass to the next question here. Our ninth question is max frequency value in a given string, which is basically we're gonna return the character which has the particular maximum frequency. So this is kind of tricky, but we have already done the hash map concept before in the previous questions. So it's kind of experience or easy question. So now we can easily solve this. We also done the maximum function in previous questions. We also done hash map in our previous questions. So this would be very easy now. So I'll just find the maximum frequency from a hash map, and I'll just return particularly the character which has maximum frequency. This is very basic. So first step, I'll just dive into the coding part directly as we understand the concept here. So I'll take the coding part here. I'll take an hash map which is gonna be seen here, or I'll take directly. I forgot to take an input. Sorry. Our input gonna be student X. Basically, what I use many times. So I've already told you we use counter to count how many values does occurred in the string. So I'll take counter here. I'm not writing the particular statement. You have to write it. Don't forget it. I already told you import counter from collections. So counter of S. Just go back and check in the video. Back in the video, I explained in particular question. I guess it's fourth question or third question. You just check there. So here I'll count each elements. Here I'll be counting each elements. So now what I'm gonna do here is after counting each element in the string, so I'll just take an substring called max, and I'll find here is max value of key of sorry, not key. Here we are taking obviously our variable here is scene, right? So I'm gonna take scene. If you don't forget, if you know the concept of dictionaries, so same thing goes also in hash map also. So here, if I say in student X, S appear 1, T appear 1. So basically this continues, right? Here, this is gonna be our key. This is gonna be our value. So we are gonna find max of our value. So what I'm gonna do here is scene dot value. This will basically find the max of the values here, right? So it will find in scene, it will find the max value. So I will be getting the max value obviously. So I'll be getting the max value, obviously. I'll check. So I'll obviously return that particular max values uh, character, right? So I'll just loop for character in S if scene of character equal to max. I'll just return, or I'll just store that particular character because there can be multiple characters of the same string, right? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take an var array. So I'll just append that particular character. Var dot append character, and at the end I'll just return that particular array to string. This will obviously become string, right? So where we will be getting our string. So I'll show the dry run here. I'll show the dry run. Our string is student x. So we'll be storing here as one, t one time, u one time, d one time, e two times, n one time, x one time. So obviously when I find this max value, we'll be getting 2 because if you check these whole values, 2 is the larger max value. So I'll be getting 2 and I'll iterate every character. And I'll check if that particular character's frequency is 2 or not. If that particular character's frequency is 2, frequency equal to max, I'll just return that particular character, or I'll just append that particular character to my list or array, and I'll return the whole array to string. This is what it's basically happening. So this is like very easy and basic question. We already done this kind of questions in the previous questions. So just follow these steps. So we'll pass to the next question. So guys, we came to the last question here, which is called string compression. I have seen this question in bunch of OS. I've seen this question in bunch of OS. So this is basically the question where we compress the string. So I'm gonna just show here. I'm taking a string called AAABBCCC. So my output here gonna be A repeated 3 times, B repeated 2 times, C repeated 3 times. So this is gonna be my output. So I will take that particular string or character, and I'm gonna just add how many times that particular character has been repeated in that string. So same thing goes on. If the new character appears, I'll just take that particular character and I'll just give that count how many times that particular character has been repeated. So this is what I'm gonna do. So for this question, we need I'll be just passing to the whole strings, and if that particular string, if I get a new character, I'll first I'm gonna start the count from 1, and I'll just increment. If I get a new character, I'll just bring that whole count value to 1 again. Before that, I'll be appending to the array here both the character and the count value, which is going to be 3 here. Again, B, which is going to be count value, is going to be 2 here, and go on. That's it. It's a very easy concept, but kind of tricky question. Don't forget it. And it's kind of easy, medium based question. It's not very easy for the beginners, so don't dive into it directly. So I'll be going into the coding part, which is going to be quite tricky. Don't forget or don't skip this video. If you want, you can just listen the whole video in 1.25x, which is going to help you very much. So we'll get into the coding part here. Basically, for the coding part, I need 2 things. For the output, I'll take a result as an array so that I'll bring that to string. So for the next thing, I need a count. So don't forget, we also need a count one, right? I already told you we'll start the count at 1, and thereby I'll give the final count and I'll store it in array, and I'll again get to the first, which is this part. This is particularly same. So what I'm gonna do is I'll be iterating from. I obviously need. I'm gonna do is here. If you see A, B, B, C, 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 right? I'll skip this particular thing. I'll start from here. I'll check whether if this particular element before that element is same or not. If it's same, I'm gonna increment count to 2, and I'll go to here. I'll check again. I'll count to 3. If this particular, and I'll go to here. If it's not same, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna store this particular s minus 1 value, which is uh, s of I minus 1 value, s of I minus 1 value plus count value, and I'll make count value to 1 again. So this is basically what I'm going to do here. Very simple thing, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'll iterate each thing. I'll iterate for I in range. As I told, I'll start from the first position to check the previous position, and I'll check until the last element, which is going to be here. I need to check until here. So which is going to be obviously length of s, right? So now after this particular thing, I will check if s of I equals to s of I minus 1, the previous element, the current element, minus the previous element, if they both are equal, what I'm gonna do is I'll just increment the count with 1. If they are, this will complete. So it will give the whole thing right here. Again, I'm gonna check if it's not. If it's not equal to, then I'll just use an else statement here. Else, what I'm gonna do is I'll just keep them in a result where I'll just append the previous value, which is basically s of I minus 1 value plus count value. So don't forget, this is called string concatenation, which is also very important topic in strings, where if you add, let me explain. If I add the string, I'm gonna print here 1, and I'm gonna just add these both things. It's gonna be 12, where it doesn't do any logical part. It just adds directly the both statements. It's the both strings are added here. This is called string concatenation. It doesn't do any logical part. It just adds the whole thing. So I'll be adding the whole thing, and I'll just giving the count to again 1 again. So after this whole thing, if our particular string is like just doesn't have many values, it does have only one value. So then what I'm gonna do here is also gonna write and constraint here. So dot append s of minus 1 plus count. That's it. If not, hold this thing. This comes here. If not, hold this stuff. If that doesn't increment at all. And at the end, I'm gonna return that particular array to string, which is my array is result. So this is what happens. So I'll show it again. I'll take result for the output, and I'll take the count for the output, and I'm gonna check that particular value and that previous value. So that's why I'm starting at the first index. And if that particular value is same, then I'll increment count. Else I'll just append that particular previous value with a count value, and I'm going to make sure that count value again comes to 1, so that I can increment again. I can get the incrementation value of the next element again. So I'm just gonna, this is like a constraint line, where if that particular string contains only one element, it doesn't gonna work for this whole part. So it just gonna do is s minus 1 value, which is a value, and going to just return this thing. So this is going to be returning. So for that only I wrote this constraint. So at last I'm going to be joining the whole array to the string. Array to string. This is what going to happen here. So this is a question which we're going to do here. It's very optimized version and very easy question. Don't forget to solve this. Just try it in the coding part. Just write in a compiler or interpreter. This is very basic thing. And here we came to the comparison of our video. So everything we covered. So in this video, we solved 10 questions where we covered whole lot of topics which are really mandatory for your interview purpose and also online assessment purpose. So if you get a rough idea about these all questions, you would easily crack the strings questions in any interview or OS. So you can easily answer these questions. And I also have explained dry runs and the logical part too, so that you can easily get an idea how that particular question works. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so that I can make much more videos like this in future. And just follow the page. So I'll meet you in the next video. We'll be meeting again.